Okay, we're back again with the same example. This time we're going to use method 2. So completing the square with this example turned out to be just a little bit tedious, or at least I know some of us might see it that way. What made it tedious was the fact that, well, we had to factor out this 2, okay, and that led to, well, a 1/2 here, okay, and so we had to multiply 1/2 by 1/2 and then square it, and we had to add that number and subtract that number, and some of us don't really like dealing with fractions too much. Well, the bad news is we can't really get away from fractions, but the good news is we don't exactly have to complete the square, because remember 2 videos ago we talked about this formula. H is equal to negative b over 2a. Well, that applies here. Remember, we have a, b is the number in front of the x, the linear coefficient, and c is the constant, right? So we can plug our b in here and our a in there. So then h is equal to negative, remember this is 1, divided by 2 times 2. So that's negative 1 over 4. Okay, we don't have a special formula for k because remember, k is just equal to f of h, which in this case is negative 1/4. Okay, so I told you we couldn't really get rid of or get away from the fractions, okay, but at least we're not completing the square. So this is 2 times negative 1/4 squared plus negative 1/4 minus 6. You see where we're getting that from? We're just plugging in negative 1/4 for this x and for that x right there. So then this is 2 times, okay, remember what we said about squaring a fraction? We square the numerator and we square the denominator. So that's 1 over 16, okay? We can just say minus 1/4 minus 6. Okay, a few more things to do, just a little bit of arithmetic. Okay, so this is 2 over 1. And because this is 2 over 1, it's a fraction, right? Remember, 2 over 1, not 2 over 2. So we look at this multiplication here and we see that we can reduce 2 and 16, 2 over 16. 2 over 16 is the same as 1 over 8. So we get 1/8 minus 1/4 minus 6. Okay, so we're just going to add and subtract as we see from left to right. Before we do that, we need a common denominator. So let's make our common denominator 8. That means I need to multiply this fraction by 2 over 2. And since this is, of course, 6 over 1, and I want a common denominator of 8, I need to multiply this one by 8 over 8. So what do I have? I have 1 over 8 minus 2 over 8 minus 48 over 8. Now we can just add and subtract the numerators. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1, and negative 1 minus 48 is negative 49. So negative 49 over 8. That is my k. And we are all done, right? Remember, because this a here matches the a that we see in standard form, we found h to be negative 1/4, and we found a k. So let's write this out. F of x is equal to 2 times x minus, okay, the minus comes from vertex form, okay, but what are we subtracting? Negative 1/4 squared minus 49 over 8. Okay, and I said it that way just to impress upon you that this minus a negative is a plus. So our final answer, f of x is equal to 2 times the quantity x plus 1/4 squared minus 49 over 8. And we are all done with that one. Again, we could not get rid of the fractions. We couldn't get away from them, but we didn't have to complete the square and worry about factoring out the GCF and the way we did in the other one. Okay, so maybe it has some drawbacks, maybe it has some benefits, but the way that you go about this is completely up to you. Thank you for listening.